Hello again, everybody. Welcome to our Challenges When Coaching Q&A. Just want to say a big thanks to everybody for all the messages and all the feedback we've received from the workshop that went out on Wednesday. We've had a great response to it, so thanks very much for that. I want to thank all the coaches who sent in their questions for tonight's session. I've picked out 4 questions that I think should hopefully cover everything. Myself and Brendan have been working away for the last few days, putting together some really good content again, hopefully. So I'll hand you over to Brendan now. Just before we do, special mention again to Brendan for his help and for all the work he's put into everything here for the last few weeks, putting all this together. I think you'll all agree that the content that Brendan's had in the workshops have been absolutely brilliant. So thanks again, everybody. We'll see you all again soon.
This is a follow-up video to the home improvement activities I gave you. So it's just to give you some idea where the origins of it were, and maybe reinforce some of the points that we were trying to do during the activities. This video clip comes from Dave Alred, who was the former kicking coach with the English rugby team, and better known as Johnny Wilkinson's kicking coach. And this was a session held for a Tyrone senior panel in GAA, and the exercises that I developed were actually taken based on his session. So you'll hear emphasis of seeing your foot strike the ball, get the feel of the kick. That's saying if you know the moment you hit the ball, you get that feel, you just made the proper contact. So he's trying to get them in touch with the feel at the moment you kick the ball. And then you'll hear him referring to the pillar. The pillar he means is your whole body, your upper body, and you're facing the ball square on. So you know that from previous briefings. So you need to face the ball square on, and that's what he means by the pillar. And then he wants you to follow through, that is, keep the momentum going after you kicked it, so that you can provide the maximum power and control in the kick, so that you get the best possible contact on the ball, and that'll be an accurate kick. So now we'll have a look at the video, and I'll talk you through it, because the sound on it, you may not be able to pick it up at times, but this is Dave Alred. So we're looking here at the ground kick, and he's using the ground kick as to work out these basic principles, and then he'll develop later on in the second part. We'll show you how he develops this into punt kick.
This is genuine repair in terms of doing something that helps us practice our process, even though, because it's a kick that's going to be difficult to do if you don't get it right. So just to start off with, guys, if I was asking you to warm up, alright, and prepare, the only thing
he's just making the point, he's watching them in the warm-up and watching them kicking. At this point I made to you, players should always know they're warming up or kicking about it correctly. He was spotting, and these are inter-county players, that their technique was something they need to improve on.
Rather than what I've just seen over there, you hit it and your pillar has to shunt a metre towards the ball. Okay, I don't want you to hit the height of the ball.
So that's the point he's saying about the pillar. He's saying about shunting. That just means you just follow the whole body through, square on, so you keep the momentum after you've struck the ball.
What I'd like you guys to do, if you can get as close as you like, is just to have a look and try and work out. Now, I know that you weren't there at the very beginning, but I want to look at the quality of the strike. More importantly, I need you to feel it. Do you want to move up a little bit here?
So he's saying, I want you to look at the quality of the strike and get the feel of the strike.
So nice and easy, right? And just make sure that there's a
So quality is giving them 5 kicks on the right, 5 on the left. So that all the time he's getting them to focus on quality kicking, but also to get on the feel of the kick. So if you watch some of the players here now, you'll see them, some do it correctly, some do it incorrectly. The player you see now just in front of you in the black with the yellow, just watch his kicking his way off to the side. He's not making proper contact. If you watch him, he'll actually bring his foot across his body, so he's not coming square on. See what I mean there? Now, but if you look further down the line, you'll see a few players you might recognise, and they're hitting it a lot better in terms of making the contact.
Okay, left foot as well, please. Right, no matter how ugly it is, just get your body through it.
So
Okay,
this is your body through it. That's what he's emphasising
right,
here.
hold on. Right, now we've got a situation where now on the other foot is a little bit more ugly. I'm going back to this thing implicit and explicit learning balance. What I'm going to ask you to do now, instead of just follow along, I'm going to ask him to follow along, alright, to a stage where you arrive here and collect the ball. In other words, we're going to exaggerate the pillar going through the ball.
So what he's saying now is he wants them to hit the ball and then move and retrieve the ball about halfway between the kicking spot and the wall. So that is to encourage the player to move and to get the proper follow through. But it's also an important principle for us in daily games that we kick a ball, we should move anyway, and maybe move on. You'll be moving into maybe a space for sport play. So it's really important. Some of our key principles here.
They've got a vested interest in hitting the ball straight in front of them because then it's going to come back to them. Alright, now I haven't said anything else.
So he's making the point there that if you hit the ball correctly, square on, that'll be your foot down and seeing your foot strike the ball, and your body is square on, and then the ball will come back to you. So that's how you will know. You'll know you make it correct if the ball comes straight back to you. If it doesn't, then you made wrong contact or your body is wrong in the way you hit it. So now we'll move on to this idea. The next he talks about is the center of gravity. And what he's pointing out is to check the center of gravity when your foot strikes the ball. In other words, are you in proper balance? So that when you actually strike the ball, and that's how you get the correct feel. You don't feel off balance. You feel I'm in balance, and when I kick the ball. So he'll talk us through that and how to help the player discover the center of gravity. Now you could tell him, we could actually just give an instruction because it's fairly obvious what where it should be, but it's far more important that the player discovers it. So he shows you a little technique as to how you can help the player become aware of that. The other thing he's saying about holding the ball in both hands is to keep, so that helps you to keep your body straight. Now we'll say that anyway in our kicking techniques before you drop it from the hand you release it from. But holding the ball in both hands helps to keep the body square on as well. And then the letdown is from your kicking side. Now again, you'll hear about the point where he says about you're looking at the moment of impact. And the moment of impact, your foot should be pointing down, and that had been a key point we have said before in kicking. So at the moment of impact, that foot is pointing down, and that your other hand is stretched out at the shoulder height to give you balance. That's if you want to know if the player is in balance, watch him in terms of where his supporting hand, it should be straight out at the shoulder level to give the balance, but also he'll be striking the ball at his center of gravity. That's what you're going to see now. Here we go.
Okay, stop. Right, can you just come up this end, guys? Just want to work with these. I'd like to work with you and I think it was you. Okay, just want you to kick.
So he's given them a task here of kicking a half volley, so that the ball will come back to you at ground height. So it's getting the player to measure the amount of effort he puts into it, but it's also about technique. So just listen to how he coaches this.
High and to the right. Okay, so in numbers, that would be minus 2 or 3. We're not worried about that. It's minus. And he also
he's making the point. What they observed here, the player leant back just as he kicked the ball. His body was actually slightly twisted as well. So that's what they're pointing out. And the ball didn't hit the target.
Okay, got it a bit lower. What was the shape? C shape. Good. So how can I help him now? I want a little tiny, one little help. Anybody? Sorry? Follow along. He did follow along, but what did he do when he followed along? He leant back. Okay, make your impact position, I'm just going to show you a simple test. I'll use you for this. Okay.
This is the impact position. This is where he's going to talk to you about the centre of gravity.
Okay, you right or left footed? Right footed, okay. So what I want you to do now, I'm going to put my foot here. Alright, I want you to try and push the sole of my foot with your foot. Okay? As if you're kicking it. No. Right, push. Okay. It's a bit difficult, isn't it?
So he's imitating what feels like contacting the ball, getting the player to feel that
keep your non-kicking
at these
foot
different
where it was.
positions.
No, you're not kicking foot. Leave that there. Let this go loose. Right, now push again. Not great, is it? Okay,
So
right.
he's getting the player
Now,
to get the feel right.
Does that feel the most comfortable? Yeah, that's the best one. Remember I talked about impact being under the centre of gravity. So when you're trying to get this across, if I just say impact under the centre of gravity, remember our first sense we were born with was feel. Allow the player to feel the difference. Okay? Right now, with that feeling in mind, you take the ball, a half volley.
So he's in, you see, he's reinforcing this point, get the feeling in mind, what it actually feels like. Now you got him to get in touch what it feels like when he's in balance, and you see that his foot was actually straight down, and just, you know, as he kicked it, it's just alongside his body as he kicked it. So he's reminding the player to get in touch with that feel.
Right, just watch. Okay, you've actually changed it. You've started to straighten up. Okay, you still turned a little bit. Okay, that was good. What I want you to do now is to take shorter steps and get your kicking foot down. You give him another ball again. Okay, shorter steps and the kicking. So you get your kicking foot straight down. Nearly. Where was your kicking foot? Did it go straight down?
So you're watching this point of impact, that the foot is pointed actually straight down, just at the point of impact.
Straight down, just jog through it.
And it's, in other words, the leg is just alongside the other leg. See the way he's skipping up there? You know, this supporting leg skips forward.
That.
See?
And I'm after that. Okay?
Yeah.
Just got to keep working at it. And again, this is horrible.
So that's an important piece of movement.
Getting better, right? And again, do it again.
You see the idea that he's moving forward, that he's not just kicking up and stopping and the leg swinging up into the air and stopping.
Okay, now,
He wants
you
to keep
notice
continuing.
there, upper body a little bit, so what can I do? Hold the ball with both hands, do it again. Watch the upper body, hold the ball with both hands. That's it, here we go. Right?
There's a
So
very
what
good
I've
example
done,
of it.
instead of staying straighten up, which is the temptation, if I hold the ball with both hands, I have to be straight. Do you see what I've done? So I'm enabling, all I'm doing is manufacturing his learning. Does that make sense? So what's your key now? Two hands, run through it. Here we go. Much better. Really good power, but if you also notice, you're brilliant for me. This is where his chest ended up, and where did the ball end up? Over there. Okay? So again, a great lesson. You stop people and say, right, where did your pillar go? Where did the ball go? Because this should be in a straight line. Okay? Right, let's go back into the groups again.
Okay, so there we got an idea of what he's working on. To just seeing that point of contact. So as coaches, we need to look just at the moment the player makes impact with the ball. Sometimes we can't see it in real time, so sometimes you might need to video it and even put it in slow motion to see exactly what is going on. So at that moment, as you see where the center of gravity, his foot is alongside the rest of his body, and that's the point of contact that the boot is down. But players themselves need to discover this for themselves. The role of the coach is to facilitate them, that they'll find where the comfortable bit is. And as you heard Dave Alred say, you know, remind yourself of the player to feel, that's what they're comparing with, that correct feel. So that's how they know they're making the correct contact each time. So that's the end of the video. So I hope that might help you in terms of working through these techniques, and this is really looking at the whole mechanics of kicking, which we don't do enough in GAA games. So I hope you find that useful and enjoy your practice. Gaurav Mahagat.
The Galway goal, it's John Hayes, the 19-year-old, who will take the penalty kick. Hayes against O'Donoghue, brilliant, absolutely superb.
Just low, right to the corner, very little that young O'Donoghue could do for it, even though he anticipated it very well. Top class.
So there is an example of the penalty kick in a match situation. So now we're going to look at the key points. So the same things are going to apply here. Is about seeing your foot strike the ball, with the toe pointed down. So what you're doing is you're going really for the lace part of the boot if you want power, and if you want accuracy, you're going side-footed. So those are things to remember in terms of taking the penalty. And the more you lean over the ball, the lower the ball will stay. So if you start to lean back, it's like the kick out, then the ball will start to rise.
Here we see the penalty kick technique being performed by an elite player. Note the position of the head, hands and feet. Now let's look at each of the key teaching points for the penalty kick. Place the ball well. Take 6 to 8 paces back and stop. Decide where you are going to place the ball. Head down and begin running forward. Place the non-kicking foot beside the ball, extending the arm at that side out for balance. Keep the head down. Strike the ball with the laces of the boot for power or the instep for accuracy. Follow through in the direction of the target.
You requested some ideas on how we might run a training session and put some of these creating space activities into place. So here's some suggested activities which I've used myself as well, and again you can come up with your own, but there's just a few I can share with you. First of all, we need to say to ourselves, what is it we want to the player to do in the match situation. So we want individual players making space so as they can create a better opportunity to win the ball or kick a score, or be able to throw off the marker, so they can win the ball and there's not a 50-50 ball. And players making runs to open up space in opposition's defence. So these may be dummy runs that they're creating space for others, or for maybe the ball carrier to have the ball into space. And the other one then is that players running into space to support the player in possession. So the player in possession is looking up and he knows I'm going to hit space. So and then there has to be a runner there that will know to go and be available for it. So we're going to have a look at a few clips of the sorts of runs players make in actual matches, and then we'll move on to some game sessions we could use on the training field to develop these areas. So first of all, we're going to have a look here at Donegal, and this is a YouTube video of Donegal creating space for goals. And so the commentator will talk you through this. He actually does the analysis, so how they do this. So what you're really looking for is the types of runs the players off the ball are making to create the space in order to achieve the goal. So let's have a little look at Donegal.
Welcome to our January Coaching Insight. During this insight, we're going to look at how Donegal use their full forward movement to create more goal scoring opportunities. In the first clip here, you can see the Donegal full forward highlighted. He moves out of the space in front of the goal. This ultimately allows Hugh McFadden enough space to get back on the ball again and just power through the space that's left.
Well, not the cleanest of contacts, but it's in the back of the net.
Again, similar scenario, just look at where the full forwards led to, out towards the left hand side of the pitch, leaving a huge block of space. This time it's Kane Mulligan who's just going to continue to run forwards into that space.
For a few more steadying scores, and there might be a goal on for them here. What a finish! Can't afford to give up such easy chances, and they lose possession again here, and Kieran Thompson can drive Donegal.
This time, look where the full forward has led to. Out and away from goal, leaving a huge block of space again, right in the centre of the pitch.
Forward, lovely ball on the inside, goal chance. Oh, and selfish from McHugh. Brilliant.
Same thing this time, Ryan McHugh on the ball, full forward leads out away from goal. There's no pass because there's no one leading ahead of the ball this time, but a huge block of space, and again, just allows Ryan McHugh to run in.
McHugh, what a goal that is!
And now we're going to have a look at Dara Canavan. And often the player who scores the goal takes a lot of the credit. But I want to give some credit here to the players in space and the running the room space. So you'll see Canavan, if you know, when you see the replays, he starts about the centre of the field and he makes a great run through the centre. But what you really need to watch is the Tyrone player on the right hand side, who plays a 1-2 with the Tyrone number 12, and it's the running of the player in space on the wing that creates the movement of this ball, so where Canavan can finish it. I also want you to watch number 12 in how he executes the pass back to the runner on the wing. He uses his left hand passing to the right, emphasizing the importance of why it's important when you're running activities. Make sure your players are forced to use right and left, because in this case the player doesn't break stride, he's going full momentum and he can give the pass, and it's more natural to give it from his left to his right, so that he can keep the movement going. So have a little look at what they do and see how all that works.
Darren Duff takeistach an son an Dylan Horn Tyrone ar Easter non see Shuchwin Canavan Derek Canavan, oh le the void, oh Derek Canavan, oh 3 points is here boy just 3 points in Ishigavaro.
Well, far ceart an áit ceart an tám sin, cúpla pás gon an chance a crothú. Branner seo Canavan a lurag an léireach, ceapna go raise go é a chur an trasnad. No chance, seach sa línt an sin, éintach an críoch.
So now we're going to have a look at activities we could try and use to help players make space so they can create a better opportunity to win the ball. And as I said earlier, they should be creating situations where they have a 60-40 chance of winning the ball, not a 50-50. So you're trying to stop players just making just single runs out, which are easy marked, and it's a 50-50 competition. So the idea is to get them an idea that you need to make 3 or 4 runs before they go to receive the ball. So you have a square here about 10 meters square, and you put down these coloured markers. So they start at white in the centre, and they must go around 3 markers before they receive the ball. And you ask them to do one run backwards. Now that the players can decide themselves which one it should be. Let them figure that out, and ask them to use different patterns each time. So first of all, you start this off just unopposed, and so he's on his own. He makes his run, and the player who's 20 meters away is watching him. And as the player rounds the second marker, then the player kicks the ball. So it means that the receiver really has to sprint around these cones in order to arrive to receive the ball. So it's really had to get it at match pace. So you can set a number of these up at the same time, so a number of players are practicing it. And then you can put them in when they're opposed. So put someone in then, just tell them to shadow them, so that even though they might figure that what routes they might take, So it's really to just to put pressure on the player and just say stay with him until he contests the ball. So that's if you're going to go for a post practice. And then the idea is that they would transfer that into the game. You're trying to watch the players that they actually will try that they are doing all these runs, 3 or 4 runs before they receive the ball. Now another option we could look at here is the idea of running these letters as Z, N, Y, X, W. And the reason I suggest this is because players often just run sort of headless. They're just running all sorts of directions with no design pattern. They're not sure how many runs they should make or what direction I should make. Whereas if they have a pattern like this in their head, they can just follow the letter each time and they know what they're doing. So it gives them something to hang on to. So again, inside a 10-meter square, so the player starts off on his own, he makes his run, player 20 meters away passes and kicks the ball as he passes the second marker. So that's what the markers will be down initially for them to get that idea to go around them. So then they again trying to get them to think about putting one backward run. Again, let them figure out which leg of the run they're going to go backwards, and get them to run a different letter each time. And then again, do it opposed with someone shadowing them the same instructions as before. And then of course, now try and get them to think of in the game that they start running these patterns. But you can then, of course, depending on the age group of your players, you can make the square a bit different. 10 initially, but you may, for example, with older players and even adults who have found themselves that haven't ever figured out they should be doing these runs, and maybe you might be even put up the square maybe to a 20-meter square. So those are some things you can play around with to help them get some sort of pattern of running for themselves. Now, if we move into there's the patterns. I'll just put there in colours for you, and so all the different movements that can be making inside that square there. Now, then I'm going to show you this one here, and then this is to do with dummy runs. And dummy runs you can do during play to throw off players, and also we can do it in free kicks, especially where it's in your in the opposition's half of the field. So in this particular example on the left here, we have number 12 in possession of the ball. Now, number 15 is coming, really charging, hands out maybe. I really want this ball, but he's heading towards the sideline, which really is a cue to maybe 12. When he does this sort of run towards the sideline, he doesn't want the ball. He knows then that he's going to be dropping this ball as he's followed the green arrow into the space. And that allows number 11, who's watching the play, to run into that space because he knows the ball is going there. So they have just that little bit of advance notice, so ahead of the opposition. So again, it's a matter of working out signals that can change. So players ask themselves to get players to come up with ideas themselves how they which is a real run and which is a dummy run. So the players around them know what's going on. So that's important to practice those sorts of things. Now, if we look at the on the right hand side, this is a case here where the corner forward here he's going to go run here and he's going to do a U-turn. So the player number 10 again, he's carrying the ball. Again, he's watching the 13, so he knows by whatever's predetermined signal that he's not coming for the ball, but he'll appear to be coming flat out for the ball, and he'll make a U-turn, and then he'll get the 10 to drop the ball into space ahead of him. So that's again, they need to have some signaling system, but again, it's important here the number 10 because he needs to time and just delay the pass that little second, so that allows the player to make the turn. And so again, if you look at these are things you can do in a set piece situation in free kicks. They can make the same type of runs to your advantage. And even if you only got a few in a game, they can create those scores or maybe even get a goal. So they're worth trying them out. But again, this is what we should be doing on the training pits to see how they work for us. So I hope that those few tips might be of use to you in terms of creating space for players in training sessions. So, Gorm Miam Haggard.